go on any kind of journey or trip, I certainly like to know where I'm going, how I'm going to get there, and I like to know my traveling companion. And if that traveling companion is new to me, I would like to be introduced to them. Wouldn't you? Well, your audience in your presentation or demonstration would feel the same way. I'm Aileen McNabb. I'm a pre-sales person, and I would like to take time today to talk to you about your 30-second introduction. Your 30-second introduction is pretty close to 30 seconds most of the time, and the purpose is to start in a way that immediately establishes something with your audience, engages them, gets their attention, gains a little bit of rapport with them, lets them know who you are, lets them know something about what's upcoming. So it is not giant-sized and elaborate, but it is very important. And it starts with a couple of sentences related to you, something that you're going to be showing today, the audience. It moves into an introduction of yourself by name if that is appropriate at the time, or just a little something or other to segue into the actual presentation. So let me give you one example of how it works, not in terms of how you make it up, but how people react to it. I was a new employee. I was the new National Director of Pre-Sales and Sales Engineering at a large company, international global company. And I went to my first company meeting in another part of the country. People where I lived and worked had seen me before, but these people had not, including one person, a few, but one person in particular who reported to me. So this was his first view of me. And if you are a pre-sales manager, you care what your employees think about you. You should. And if you're an SE or a pre-sales consultant, well, of course you would like to have somebody managing the group who knows something about the role. So I liked this guy's comment. So here's what happened. I went to the meeting. I was sitting in the audience, and as I watched them, there I made up my 30-second intro. I had another one, but this seemed more appropriate. And then I got up. I had my presentation all prepared, of course. Before I started, I did my 30-second intro, and afterwards, the person who reported to me said, well, it is really nice to see somebody who obviously is a professional presenter. Now, besides praising myself, which of course we all love to do, that's important. That's how it can impact people. And so I don't think you should, well, I know you should not overlook it. So how do you do it? How do you do your 30-second intro? How do you come up with one? Well, remembering that you're keeping it brief, that it must be relevant to whatever is happening that day. Now, in that case, it might be relevant to you. They sometimes really care about who they're doing the journey with. It might be about their industry, their company, them, and it might be something about the solution as long as it's in their terms, maybe about one of their problems. So let me give you a couple of examples. My first one, I'm making up for the purpose of this video. Don't ever make them up. They have to be real. So imagine I'm starting my presentation and I stand up and I say, 79% of companies like you in your industry have recently been found to be in breach of their government contracts. $21 billion of government contract revenue is now at risk. That was on the news this morning. I'm Aileen McNabb. My job today is to help make sure that that never happens to you. In the one I mentioned earlier, where I was doing the internal presentation, internal presentations are sometimes thought of as casual. Well, if you're presenting to people who report to you, your peers, and people that you report to, it's not that casual. But it had a casual atmosphere. And remember, these people were just meeting me. So when I stood up, I said, all the presentations today have been about goals for the departments coming up this year. Mine is too. But first, one of my key goals always in a presentation is to have my presentation match me. So today what I'm going for is short and sweet. So we can see the short is in line. Let's see how the sweet goes. So it was silly. but it did tell, and I'm not tall. I'm not that short, really, but I'm not very tall. And so it just sort of set the tone. It made them know that I was not going to be super, super formal. And we had a ton of fun with the presentation because it set the tone, I believe. And then I got that feedback from an employee, and it matters that they think that you're a professional or that you know what you're doing, because how else are they going to turn to you for any kind of guidance? That's the sort of thing that you can do with a 30-second intro. And the way it works in the scheme of things is stand up, do your 30-second intro, move right into the next part, which is your problem, your amplification, and then your solution. It is a process. And we talked about doing chunky demos. When you're doing each chunk, do another 30-second intro. It will be slightly different. You're not going to introduce yourself, but it might be where you throw in a snippet of a little story. Just stay professional, stay informative, and make sure that you're always keeping everything relevant to your audience and the reason that they're there today. Now, you won't always use your name. You're not, if somebody just introduced you, if you're doing a segment and you've already introduced yourself, you might start with, 79% blah, 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 and say, so to address that, let's go look at this. Just do your 30-second intros. You'll be surprised at how professional people think you are.